join me in welcoming Phyllis King.
Nice to see everybody tonight. Welcome to Winning the Money Game. Such a fun topic, isn't it? Who likes money? Nice. Very nice. And as he said, I am the common sense psychic because I love the practical and I love the spiritual. I love to put them together. And I've been doing this work professionally for about 15 years, for those of you who don't know me. But I've been involved in the process for over 30. Wow, 30. And of course, in terms of the planets and how long the planet's been around, that's kind of just a flip on the screen. But very briefly, I just want to share my history with you, because get the boring part over while people are coming in. It's boring to me because I tell it all the time. Come in, be brave. Everyone stare. It's beautiful. I already don't like that lady yet. Anyhow, my first experience, I had a lot of experiences through childhood with the intangible becoming tangible. And I didn't ever speak about it out loud for a variety of reasons. It's all in the book if you care to know more. Experiences like seeing formless shapes, entities, if you will. A little bit scary, but nothing traumatic ever happened. Then I had experiences like I call remote viewing. I don't even know if I would call it remote viewing, but it's the best way I can describe it. People are still coming in, so we'll just say hello. Hello. I could know what people were eating, what they're talking about, and I would know. I'd be thinking in my house or something, thinking, I'm thinking about so-and-so, and they're eating this, and they're talking about that, and then 2 hours later, oh, hi, so-and-so, and you're talking about, leave the heavens.
That's for the poltergeist.
I love it. So anyhow, I just stored these experiences away, and I just thought that's interesting. And then as I got into adolescence, I started to have experiences of precognition, primarily through dream state, meaning go to sleep, have a dream, wake up, and those dreams would transpire within 24 to 48 hours. Now those experiences I actually enjoyed. They brought me some type of comfort. It kind of made me aware that there was maybe a continuum, or there was some type of a reason going on. I don't know that I put that language to it at 14, 15, but I felt comfortable with it. Again, really wasn't talking about it, not sharing it. I didn't know what psychic was. And everything changed when I was 19. And a friend of mine who passed away in a car accident showed up at my house 3 months after he died. And it wasn't like, oh, an apparition. Oh, in my mind's eye, I see. No, he looked like any one of you. And I was terrified. My adrenaline was going and my heart was pounding. And he was in this incredible pink light, and it was an amazing experience. And even though I was terrified, at the same time this knowing was placed in my space, something that you can't unknow, that life doesn't end with the body. And that was a big turning point for me. And from that point on, a lot of my spontaneous experiences, even if they were scary, they always left that awareness that there was more to life in the body. But after that experience, seeing Gary Duraskovich was his name, I had a voracious appetite for spiritual information. The first thing I wanted to know was, what is this stuff? What is this stuff happening with me, and what does it mean? What do I do with it? And so there was a process I went through for a number of years to try and figure out how to do it when I want to do it, not just have it happen to me. And then the second part was, well, what does this mean? What does it mean if there's more to life than the body? What does that mean in terms of how do I make that fit into a real life world? What does that mean about reality, God, all this stuff? So I love spiritual works. I've participated in many different religions. I was raised in the Episcopal Church. I participated in Science of Mind. I've known a lot about Jehovah's Witness, Unitarian, know a lot about Judaism, Hinduism. I love it all. As long as it doesn't go too crazy on me, I can fit in really well. I see the truth that goes on in there. But over the years, I've pieced together some things. I certainly don't know everything, but I want to tell you that the things I'm going to share with you tonight, I know for sure. There's maybe only 4 or 5 of them, but I know them for sure. And it reminds me of, Oprah had her magazine, or still does. I haven't read it in a while, but there was a feature in the back called What I Know for Sure. And so I just want you to know that I know these things for sure, and I hope that wherever you are in the spectrum of your money space, your prosperity space, however much you need, however little you need, that you'll get what you need tonight. Or you'll wake up, I'll wake you up to what you already have or what you need to hear. And so that is really my goal tonight. And what's going to happen is I am going to present my information and lay it out for you, my perspective. I'm going to give you some very specific tools, because we often will get the principles, but then we're kind of stuck, and we go, well, what do I do? I mean, really, where do I start? So I'll tell you where to start. And then I'm going to open it up for a question and answer. I want to do some mini readings, and I really want to hear from you about what your challenges are. I want to know, because some of the best teaching moments and learning moments are going to be when you tell me your story, and we can kind of go through it here. And then, excuse me, if anyone's interested, by show of hands, who would like to know how I tripled my income in the last 2 years?
I do 2 hands.
And I will tell you that. I will tell you exactly how I did it, actually. Yay! Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's get to it. All right, the first thing that you have to address when you're starting to look at your money, your prosperity space, is how you define prosperity. Because everybody's going to define it different. And a lot of people will tell you how to define it. Some people will say, oh, you define it by your 5,000 square foot house and your Mercedes-Benz, or you have the wealth of Donald Trump or someone of this nature. And oh, there you go. Thank you. Yeah. Who would have thought I would have run out of the propaganda? And there are prosperity coaches out there who will tell you that to be prosperous means that you have a Learjet, or you have, 5 different houses, and you have $1 billion or $1 million in your bank account, which is all good stuff. But for instance, for me, I define prosperity, for me personally, as my kids and my family. And when I'm with my kids and I'm with my family, it doesn't get better than that for me. And that's part of, because of what I've been through in my life and what's happened to me in my life, what fills me up. But say, well, a couple of weeks ago, I went up to Portland, Oregon to see my family, took my little ones with me. And we're in my sister's house, which is kind of this dilapidated 30-year-old pile of junk. And my sister is a love. Oh my gosh, talk about someone who knows how to love. But she doesn't clean very much. Let me put it that way. But when I'm in her space with my kids and my folks, I'm just like, this is it. There is nothing better in the world to me. And I tell you what, if I had a Learjet, that would be a big headache to me. And so people who talk about, we all have to have Learjets, and we all have to have these mansions, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because if we all had Learjets, who'd be driving them? Who's going to help us clean our houses? Who's going to clean the streets and pick up our garbage? So that doesn't even represent any form of balance to me when people say that's what you need to aspire to. So the first thing you want to do is figure out, where are you with that? What are your values? And do you know what they are? Or have your well-meaning friends, the media, our culture, the government, whomever, Oprah, I love Oprah though, I mean, do you even remember what your values are? Or what are you striving toward? You got to understand what your motivations are when it comes to defining prosperity for yourself. You got to know that piece. That's kind of step number 1. Define it for yourself. And then you can start to put a number to it. But you can't put the number to it until you know what it is for you. And for some people, it's someone making $8,000 a year. I saw some guy on Judge Judy a few weeks ago. She said, how much did you earn last year? He says, $8,000. He was proud. He was feeling like he was doing pretty good, he was young. But, someone else, they need to make that $500,000 a year. I mean, they have that comfort level. So do you get the point? Define it for yourself. And authentically with yourself. Not what you think it's supposed to be, not what your parents told you, your spouse, your neighbor. You really have to get what your compass. I have this microphone. I'm going to be pointing to this one. I don't need to move it over to that side. So there you go. And that goes hand in hand with how much is enough, which is another thing I see people get stuck on. I have a lot of people call me on the radio. At least one person every show calls me up and says, Phyllis, I really need to make more money. I don't have enough to pay my bills. I'm falling behind. My spouse is stressed out at me. There's just not enough for me to get through. When am I going to have more money? When am I going to get a new job? Phyllis, I'm so stressed out. And the first thing I just want to say is, well, first of all, you got to get out of this mental place where you're saying there's not enough. You have to remember that you are interacting with a consciousness at all times. We're more than the body. We have a human body, but we also have a spiritual identity. A spiritual body that also has its goals and directives. Okay? And if you're putting into consciousness, I don't have enough, I need more, you're only going to create more experiences that will have you deal with not enough. So you have to watch that language. And typically what happens with people in those situations, their situation has changed, and they're trying to continue to get their resources from a situation that is no longer alive. There's something is empty there. Do you guys remember the book written some years ago called Who Moved My Cheese? Did anybody read that? Yeah, it was a great tribute to this concept that we have to be flexible, and rather than get stuck on, I have to have it this way, you have to be able to say, move over here and say, oh, I need to go elsewhere, I need to look at a different way. And we also have to say, what am I supposed to be learning here? We human beings, we want everything to be like this. We want it to be a constant. No change, please. No change, please. And that's just not ever going to be life. Life is always changing. And so we get into this thing, and when something shifts, we're like, oh my God, I need it to go back to the way it was. And when really, in those moments, you need to say, what am I supposed to be learning here? What's going on with this situation? Rather than lamenting about this job is not paying me what it needs to pay me. So the first thing I do with those people calling up saying, there's not enough, Phyllis, when am I going to get it? I know you got to start with the language, you got to start with the thoughts. You got to take charge of those thoughts. That language is telling you there's not enough, because in consciousness, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. Does everybody get that it's unlimited, or is that a question mark? Right hand for question mark, left hand for limited. I can't. Well, one thing I know for sure is that it's unlimited. And when you're trying to expand, you have to reach for that expanded place that knows how to, that is land of possible. You have to get out of that ego mind, that little teeny lens that says life is just this, and go to where everything is possible. You guys ready to do that?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you guys are easy. You're going to be millionaires before the night's over.
Someone could make an argument about limited resources.
Well, in the human experience. In the human experience, but the human experience for me is 10% of the totality of our experiences. Hands down, the spirit, the essence, is driving the human experience. And yes, we have to be concerned about the experience of the body. We have to eat, we need to drink, we need sex, we need money, we need shelter, all that good stuff. But again, our spiritual identity has needs. Our spiritual identity wants to know, how do I heal myself from all this inadequacy I'm feeling in my life? How do I get beyond feeling rejected and feeling like a loser? How do I get beyond that stuff? I mean, that's what your spirit is trying to heal and get you to see. And so a lot of times these situations are bringing just those things up so you can see it. A lot of times people will call me on the air and they'll say something like, Phyllis, I just got out of a relationship,
And it's been out, 3 or 4 months, and I'm ready to have a new person in my life. And I'm like, oh, crazy. No, good for you. Fantastic. And I'll say, okay. She goes, when's he coming, by the way? Okay, well, first, and one of the things about me on the radio, I rarely give a yes or no answer. I go, what did you learn from that relationship? And she says, well, I learned that I don't like people who are money driven, and I don't like to go to the beach, and I don't like people who interrupt me. And I'm like, okay. Those are things you put on Match.com, okay? Likes and dislikes. But what did you learn? Dead silence. Well, I don't like people who are money driven. No. What did you learn? And then I go through the process of saying, so why'd you break up? Well, he was just never there for me. I was always alone and couldn't count on him. And so how did that make you feel? Oh, unlovable. Rejectable, like I don't matter. Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So what have you done with that? Oh, well, nothing. I never really thought about it until today. So the things you are left with in the moment are what you're supposed to be dealing with. That's what you're supposed to be learning. And everyone always wants to say, oh, well, he made me feel that way. He made me feel rejectable. He made me feel unlovable. And no, it was your perspective based upon what's going on inside of here that told you, because of what he did, you are rejectable. So I said, how do we fix that stuff? Well, we go inside, and I say, when's the first time you remember feeling unloved and rejectable? Oh, gee, I guess when my mom used to lock me in the room and say, stay in there for 3 hours, or else I'm going to kill you. Oh, okay. And what did we do with that? Well, I told myself I was a piece of crap, and so you see how this goes. And this is the work one needs to do in terms of the emotional piece, which is tied, of course, to what we believe, and it's tied, of course, to I have enough. You have to deal with what is going on in your center of your world, your universe. Why do you think that book, The Power of Now, was written? Because it's all in the now, and human beings want a future trip. That's all. That's why I guess my business tripled. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen, what's going to happen. But if you take care of right now, you don't have to worry about what's going to happen in the future. Okay, so we looked at the beliefs, some of the thoughts, the emotions. Let me make sure I get everything in here. Oh, this is a good one. The other thing I get is a lot of people who we want to compartmentalize. That their finances are somehow separate from the rest of you. And just last weekend I did a talk in Castro Valley, and a woman came and she said, well, I'm really sick of this job, but I can't go do this other thing because I need this money. And I go, okay, well, that's your belief, and your beliefs form your perspective. And if that's where you want to put your beliefs and put your perspective around, you are going to create more of that. But when someone tells me that, what they're really telling me is, I'm afraid that I can't do it, and I need my safety net. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I can't go do what my heart is telling me to do. And a few minutes ago I was going to tell you how I tripled my income in the last 2 years. And the number one thing that tripled my income was that I let go of anger and bitterness towards people in my personal life. What do you think about that? You're like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? How are you? Thank you. What that has to do with everything is that we can walk around with all that stuff kind of neatly tied up. I'm nice, I'm happy, I'm fun. Then you get behind closed doors, you have all that going on behind the scenes. And even if people don't see it, they don't see you behave that way, it's working in your energy. And science proves that 94 to 98% of what we do already is unconscious. We're just responding unconsciously to one another. That's why we see somebody who is an abuser, but they look really attractive, cute. Because we're responding to familiar patterns that say we were abused or whatnot. Hey, looks really cute, right? Because we're responding unconsciously. Same thing. People see, oh, that lady's got anger going. That lady's got some resentment. Maybe not even conscious.
But no one's going to want to reveal themselves in my work, that's for sure, if they think they're going to get judged or there's anger or criticism. And so when I let that go, and I could share myself with people and let them share themselves with me, and they felt really free, like, well, nothing's going to come down on me here, boom, things went absolutely crazy. And it has been absolutely crazy. And I'll say more of the specifics of how I actually did it, but for me, that was the turning point. And so when I say you can't compartmentalize that your finances are over here, and your personal relationships are over here, and how you earn your money is over here, it's all connected. And the more you get that it's all connected, and how you feel about it means a lot, you're getting closer to vibrating at a prosperous frequency, because, as we know, everything's energy, right? And we all agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. And you know, on the spectrum of emotions, on one side you're going to have the apathy and the boredom and the depression, which are thick, slow-moving vibrations. And then on the other side you're going to have generosity and, you know, happiness and enthusiasm. Those are thinner, faster-moving vibrations. You can create really good stuff with that, right? And so if you're aspiring to those frequencies as opposed to the others, you're going to find you're in a more prosperous space. So yeah, don't compartmentalize. And you have to recognize your thoughts are things. Susie Orman wrote about that in her book some 15 years ago, 9 Steps to Financial Freedom. Thoughts are things. Your feelings are things. I was reading a woman, gosh, maybe a week ago, brilliant woman, just it's a marketing maniac. It's a big organization, just really creative and wonderful. Hates her job. And when she came to me, she was just like tied up in a knot. Yeah, I gotta go to work. Yeah. Why are you there? Well, I gotta go to work because, now why are you there? Why is that a good idea? To be all tied up in a knot and say, yeah, I'm going to work. Why is that a good idea? How do we convince ourselves that that makes sense? We convince ourselves that that makes sense because of all the external influences that tell us who we're supposed to be. And it disconnects us from our heart, which is our compass. We've lost sight, we've lost connection with what's important to us, what matters to us, or we're judging us against other people's standards. That's intense stuff. And yeah, I teach a lot of classes, obviously. I teach psychic development, I teach life mastery, and those are my favorites, but I have others. But mostly what I do is I teach people how to wake up to themselves again, and I give them permission to do that. Because one of the other things about prosperity is that you have to have something you love in your life. Maybe you weren't as blessed as I am at this present moment, in the way I feel blessed to be able to do this work, but you got to have something in your life that you love. You know, because you think that if everybody had a little something that they could just get so excited about every day, whether it was their job or a hobby, a person, an animal, whatever that was, that's an incredible frequency to have ongoing in your space. And just think how different you would behave in the world. And I was just thinking about my client who is so tied up in knots, and just how much empathy I felt for her position and how tied up in knots she was. And I was just like, wow, you can't get out of there because? You know, and that's a very familiar call I get on the radio. Someone will call up and say, hey Phyllis, I need a new job, or I want to change careers, or I've been home for a while and I want to get back to the workplace. What do you think I should do? And I'll think about it for a minute. I go, well, I'll tell you what I think you should do based upon your impressions. And then I say, well, what do you love? And I go, huh? What? What do you love? And most people who ask that kind of a question on the radio are like, gosh, I haven't thought about it. And it's not necessarily something you think about. It's actually something you feel. But we get disconnected from here and we start living our lives from up here rather than down here. So, don't compartmentalize. Have something you love in your life. It's so important. And we just walk through our lives as if that's not important. Why? Conditioning. We're on autopilot. We really are. We're on autopilot. And there's only a couple of ways, well, there's a few ways to get off autopilot. You know, the way I do it is by being really awake and being really intentional, really engaged with my process. And not, you know, sometimes I go unconscious, but I come back to it. The spaces in between unconsciousness get less and less. And really be engaged with what's going on with you. You know, there's subliminal programming, there's things like EFT and EMDR and hypnosis and wonderful tools that can help you reprogram your mind. I use some of those actually in my CV. But you do have to get in there and do the work of becoming engaged with your life. And some people, you know, it's not always easy, especially if you haven't done the emotional piece. Because sometimes releasing that emotional baggage, it takes time. And you can only do as much as you can do at any given time. There's layers to it. But it's just important that you keep moving in that direction. Show yourself that you matter enough. Because when you put I matter into consciousness, you're going to get a nice bonus back. Because that's like the highest form of admiration to God consciousness. I matter. Oh yeah. It's not narcissism. It's survival. So have something you love. Pay attention to the emotional baggage. Stay engaged in your process. And if you can't stay engaged 100% of the time, that's normal. But keep moving in that direction. Because all of this is about raising your frequencies. Because at the end of the day, it's an energy game. It's an energy game. It's math. It's simple math. And if you raise your frequencies, then prosperity begins to be attracted to you. And prosperity will attract to you based upon what your needs are. What it is you need, not what external world tells you you need, but what your needs are. You know, some people always think, oh, more money in my bank account is what I need. That's all I need. That's the answer. So why is it that people who win the lottery lose most of their money and are miserable? Why do you think that is? Well, the reason is because it's not really about money. Why they weren't happy? They don't know how to manage money to begin with. You know, and they lose it. It's, you know, it's not about money. You can't compartmentalize. Yeah. Okay, so let me make sure I've done all of the steps there. Great. Well, let's get into some specifics here. I told you I'd give you the tools. And basically what I just went over, you do the 5 things that you have to address. You want to address your beliefs about prosperity and just what you believe in general. Is it a limited world I live in or an unlimited world I live in? And which form of consciousness are you using to address the world? Are you using the ego to address yourself, the little lens that's designed to tell us how to do our taxes and how to put gas in our car and make our grocery list? Or are you using the land of possible, everything's possible, to formulate your dreams and your aspirations? Where are you in that belief system? Next, of course, the habits, which we'll get into in just a second here. We have to address the habits, what you're doing with yourself in terms of, are you challenging the thoughts? Are you challenging the beliefs? You know, that's one of the things people will call me on the air and say, Phyllis, I really want to do this one life purpose thing, but I don't want to work on Tuesdays, and I don't want to work after 5, and I'm not going to work with women, and I don't like this, and I'm like, oh boy. So what are you going to do? Okay, so what will you be willing to do? Yeah. Very interesting how, and I say, well, do you recognize you just told consciousness everything you're not going to do? You've just sort of opted out of flexibility, inspiration, opportunity. You've said no to all those frequencies. Yeah, good stuff there. And then, of course, we talked about the third thing is thoughts. What are your thoughts? Are you challenging the thoughts when you tell yourself you can't? Are you going to believe that? Because perspective is trained. You know, there's people over in other parts of the world eating grasshoppers and gross bugs and going, yummy, because they've been told since they were young that this is good stuff, delicacy, and they like it, they enjoy it. And I'm like, get that stuff away from me or you're hitting the floor. Yeah. It's like, yeah. So perspective is trained. You can train yourself, and you should, because whatever you start to put into consciousness is what you'll get back. If you believe you can't move out of that terrible job, that you have to stay there for your money, you'll continue to get experiences that reinforce that. The emotions, we have to recognize that our emotions have content as well. They are things. And you're putting that into consciousness. And emotions are one of the most powerful ways we create. You know, we can say, yes, intellectually, I want more money, I want to be happy, I want love, whatever it is. And then we go home and we're crying in our Oreo cookies and saying, I'm a terrible person, who would love me, I'm ugly, I'm this, you know. And we're experiencing all that. And that goes too to something I talk about called the gestation period. When we're trying to create something, just like having a baby, it takes a little time. You know, it takes time. You have to create your little momentum, your little bundle of energy patterns, and then you have to stay consistent with it, giving it enough time to manifest into something. You know, so there is that. And people often want to bail out on themselves before the gestation period is up. So it takes time. And if you stop in between, it's what I see a lot of, people will start on their project and get really excited about it. Then they haven't made their millions within 3 months. And they go, well, it's not what I thought it would be. And they immediately, you know, they want to give up. And then what happens with the energy pattern, it goes off the deep end. And then if they want to start again, they got to start all over and start building it again. So the consistency with the thought patterns, the emotions, and the commitment to what it is you're doing. And then finally, of course, the actions. Staying in action. And not always in action. Action isn't always action, if you could believe that. But it means that your focus is on where you are going and what you're trying to accomplish. And if that means being with your emotions in the moment, that's what it is. But being committed to your plan. So those are the 5 keys: beliefs, habits, thoughts, emotions, and actions. So here's the exact how-to. And I will tell you, before I get into that, in addition to letting go of anger and resentment, has made my business expand, I decided I was going to believe in myself, really. It's like, this is who I am, this is it. You know, I'm going to do this fully and completely regardless of what anybody says, thinks, or does. I'm not going to bail out on myself. So there was a commitment level that's required. You know, you really have to commit regardless of what anything external says to you. Like I had a woman call me on the radio one day and she says, Phyllis, I'm living life purpose. I'm doing XYZ job and I'm so happy now. Could you tell me, is it going to be successful by the end of the year, or do I need to go back to my old job? So, kind of a little common sense, well, no business makes money in the first year, okay? Well, none, but, you know, why you'd work for another company for 20, 30 years, but you're going to bail on yourself in a year? You have to go with the gestation period, recognize just because you're on life purpose or choose a direction, the Red Seas aren't necessarily going to part. You know, the hard work doesn't end. I work very hard all the time, but it doesn't feel like work because I love it. It makes all the difference. And I've worked for other people and made them very successful, and they really enjoyed that. But now I kind of want to do it for myself. And so that commitment to self is really, really important. And then developing a strategy. People go into creating business or changing their life with no strategy. Oh, I think I want to be a furniture designer and I'm going to move to New York to do it. Oh, okay, that's nice. And what's next? Or do you have a place to live? They don't have any of the pieces in place. I just have a dream. I have a dream. And because it's a beautiful dream and I've loved it my whole life, that means that it's going to materialize instantaneously. But I think about my career in terms of this, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, you know, and you grow and evolve and you change. And you have to keep up with yourself as you grow and evolve and change, and know that it changes as you do. But you always have to keep reaching out, talking to people, and committed to yourself, committed to your process. So, gotta do that piece. And why do people have difficulty committing to themselves? Well, they're out of practice. They're out of practice, or the self-worth piece, which goes back to the thoughts and the emotions. So that's why you can't compartmentalize and you have to work the totality of your package, okay? And I just think about just like a couple of years ago when I still had all that anger in me. What a difference it was speaking to groups or being with people as opposed to now. Just not nearly as rewarding. Okay, so that's most of how I did it. A lot of marketing, got to learn how to market a little bit. Not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. But it's mainly being committed to yourself and doing the basic steps. So let's get into some of the steps. I'm not saying everybody here has to be an entrepreneur, but if you're going to change your life and try and embark on a new process, you got to make some clear goals. And if you're not used to making goals, it's really just a list. And I write lists every day. I know what my goals are, and they're in my head primarily, but I make lists all the time. I know what I'm doing for the next week, the next 2 weeks, the next 3 months. And then as I move along, I might have to adjust things. But say you were starting out some type of a, I don't know, say it was a clothing business, I'm just picking something. You know, first you probably want to find out, well, how much does it cost to get a location? How much is it, where am I going to get my product? You know, how do people make money in this? Maybe I should talk to somebody. So you probably start with like those 4 things. You just start with the information you need to get. And you say, oh, I'll get that information within 30 days. And then in 30 days you set another set of goals. I mean, too often people don't set any goals and they're just kind of like out there doing nothing tangible. So set some goals. And then keep on, this goes with being engaged with your process. So in 30 days, make sure that you're back in touch with setting new goals. Make 3-month goals, 6-month goals, annual goals. And it's important you write it down. Because when you write it down, it kind of it makes it soak into your consciousness more. You've actually thought about it enough to write it down, and it imprints in a different way than if you just think about it. So definitely write it down. And then write down the habits that you're going to need to utilize to get to your next step. For instance, if you have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, if that's one of your, well, I need to get an alarm clock that doesn't freak me out, or I need to do some way to get myself out of bed. Or say if you needed to be a personal trainer and you're 80 pounds overweight, well, I guess I need to start walking regularly. I need to start building habits into my life that support that which it is I say I want. And you know what those are most of the time. And you don't have to do 10 of them. Everyone thinks, oh, I have to do all these 10, I need to change my life today. No, if you just change one thing and stick to it on a continuous basis, you're going to see a shift in your life. But build in habits that are going to support what it is you say you want to do. Say you wanted to be a counselor or, you know, a psychic or something like that. Well, you want to build in some, you know, get some support for that, or what do you need training, whether you need to get hours, whatever it is your thing is, make sure you're setting yourself up to have those experiences. And that's a giving to yourself space. People are always saying why they can't do something. Oh, I don't have time, I don't know how, nobody wants to listen to me. Very important that you stick to those, to support, creating things that are going to support what it is you say you want. Just one at a time. Okay. You should, in my opinion, have some form of a daily practice of meditation of some sort. Some people can use exercise. Sometimes that works for people. You need some way to empty the mind, because we're taking in so much chatter, 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 so much noise all the time. We really need to get to square one to remember, oh yes, okay, I'm a body, I have all these things I have to think about, but I do have a spiritual identity that also is trying to have expression in this world. And so you need that clean slate. And for me, I have to have some way to meditate. I have to have some way to empty and stop all the chit-chat. And that's very important. And then what goes hand in hand with that is reprogramming the mind, creating the new thought patterns, like feeding yourself with the affirmations or the subliminal programming. Or maybe you need therapy, or you know, you might if you have emotional stuff to work through. Yeah.
Can we also ask our angels to help us on the path?
Why not?
Like if we don't know exactly what we want to do in life.
Yes,
Exactly.
you can ask whatever works for you in terms of guidance and support. And I love that whole thing of reaching to the intangible, wherever your answers are going to come from.
So you believe, like, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, and I ask them that they will kind of put it in my path.
Well, I don't
Or
know
help
exactly
them.
what your connection is with your spirit guides or your angels, if you will. I'm all for communicating with those who do not have bodies. I know they exist. And if you have a connection that works for you, use it. I don't exclude it. I'm just using things that are very tangible that anyone can utilize these things and find their way around to get the guidance, to get the support. And it's just because we are on autopilot, and so much of what we do is habitual, and we're not even aware. We're just not even aware of it. Sometimes the mental programming, subliminal programming, like I have on that CD, is helpful. EMDR, EFT, hypnosis, things that really get in there and rewrite the script, make it go more quickly. So when you really get into the mind and create those new neural pathways, and it takes 30 days to do that. So the science piece, you do have to get in there and make those new connections, because the proclivity is to fall back into what we're ingrained to thinking and believing and behaving. So it is a proactive, engaged process, but by all means, use whatever you have available to you. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Emotionalize and visualize. This is one of my favorite ones, and I have this thing on my website called 10 Minutes a Day to Change Your Life, and I talk to people about it all the time, where the beginning of the day for 5 minutes, and at the end of the day, close your eyes, empty out the brain, and start imagining how you would feel if that thing you say you want was here now. Not how you're going to make it happen, just that it was here now. And you just pour as much emotion, just feeling like, oh, that $1 million is in my bank. Wow, that feels great, and all my bills are paid. What that feels like. And what you really do is insert that frequency into your space. And when you do it with regularity, you're going to be surprised at what happens. I've been using this technique for years now, and things just kind of come out of the blue. I don't even think about it, but I get this phone call, hey Phyllis, will you do this, or Phyllis that, or it's just like, where did that come from? Oh, that's right, the imagining. And that's just 10 minutes a day. But again, it's an intentional programming, it's an intentional something I'm doing to change my frequencies, my energy patterns. Something that's, yeah.
Emotionally and what?
And visualizing as well. Because the emotions are, for me, more powerful than the thoughts. And then this goes hand in hand with really popular vision boards. Having something, the pictures to get excited about. Oh, that's what I'll look like when I've lost the 80 pounds. Oh, that's the beach house. Oh, that's the spouse. Or, whatever it is you think it is you want, just to kind of have it imprint on your mind. And it's the saturation that over time, the mind can automatically help you create that. So use those kinds of tools. And then what I also think is good, if you can, keep a daily journal of what you're doing. It keeps you engaged in your process, and really helps you see where you are and where you've come from. Because time goes pretty quickly, and we don't realize how much we've done in short periods of time. So that's the nuts and the bolts of winning the money game. It's a lot about energy. It's a lot about being engaged with yourself, and knowing that it's more than just money. It's more than just a process. It's a human process. It's a spiritual process. And when you get those two together, and they're in balance together, there's really nothing you can't do or can't create. And what I wish you could come away from this with is that you really need to allow your authentic well-being. Recognize that that is your prosperity, that authentic, that you're in touch with yourself, you're engaged with your process, you're learning your personal lessons, you're defining your personal standards, and that is the prosperous act. And from that place is where prosperity is attracted to you. And it sort of just happens automatically. I'm not saying you don't have to work. Like I said, I work very hard, but it doesn't feel like work because I love it. But it attracts to you because you're resonating at those frequencies. And so many times people say, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, but it's really the other way around. When you believe how this game works and you really commit yourself to it, then you see it. So take it and run with it, my friends. It works. And now I want to hear from you. I've thrown all this stuff at you, fired it away, and there's more, but I limited it to 40 minutes. I want to hear your questions. I'll be happy to do mini readings, and I want to see what your snafus are. And if you would say your first name. Esther. Hello.
So, you want to be in a space of prosperity,
Yes.
and you have a feeling of prosperity, so the prosperity comes to you, right? Because you are attracting,
Well,
because you are vibrating.
Yes, yes.
But
It's
then
more
you
than
have-
just feeling prosperity. It is a state of being.
Yes,
Okay.
we want to be in a state of being. But then you have to
But, she tells me.
but reality then knocks you down sometimes. How do you keep up?
Well, it's your perspective. If you view it as knocking you down, and I'm sure, we all get
For example,
wounded.
you get this deal that you
Yeah.
get, or something like that.
Well, we all get those circumstances that come at us, and they may initially hit us. But part of what you're talking about is practice. When you practice a perspective that says, this bill is coming and I don't have the money in the bank right now to pay it, this is a bad thing. If that's your perspective, and you've been practicing that a long time, when a bill comes and you don't have the money to pay it, you're going to feel badly about it, right? But if you know that there's abundance, unlimited abundance in the universe, then you say, okay, here's a bill, I don't have the money this minute, but I know there's an answer here. I know there's a solution. And I'm worth more than feeling like crap right now, so I'm going to defer this for a moment until I have an idea about a solution. And you don't really go to that place. And it's training yourself. It's practice, practice, practice. That's how we get to Carnegie Hall, practice. I mean, so you're talking about a perspective shift. That's how you do it. Yes, sir.
I've been looking for work for a while, so I just started volunteering, doing
Oh,
things.
excellent. What's your name, sir?
Dan.
Dan, hi.
So I just started volunteering, doing things, and that's actually worked where then
Yeah.
people started paying me a little bit to
Yeah.
do things because I was doing it well. And I got to that level, but then I sort of got stuck. And it's like, the bills are coming in and I'm paying the bills, but there's nothing extra. So I'm trying to get to the next level, and it's like, how do you get through that stuck?
Well, I actually might try something else. If that particular volunteer spot has dried up, go somewhere else because that worked for you.
Yeah.
Or I would have you asked people there where you're volunteering what's next, or is there any other opportunities?
Yeah.
And what have they told you?
Not right now.
Not right now. Well, and that's sort of the nature but what I love about the volunteer piece is that it keeps your energy up, and even if you're not getting paid, you're still contributing. So I would say look for another source, look for another avenue, because it's like the absolute best networking ever. You're going to connect by June, by the way, so you have something coming up inside of 30 days.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're doing good, you're doing the right thing. I mean, as soon as you said that, I was like, yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Art.
Mark?
Art.
Oh, Art. Hi, Art.
I just, two-part question. Speaking of the economy and the mass consensus or consciousness, what do you think is going to happen in the United States?
Okay. It's a little tiny question for you. Well, I'm glad I have 35 minutes to answer it.
Well, is it,
No.
you
And
know,
we're going to hold you to this, okay?
Getting hot in here.
related to what you're talking
Yeah.
about, where are we headed, you know?
Well, I'll tell you the absolute truth of how I feel about it. This is the first time in my entire life I haven't been able to predict the future patterns for the planet more than 6 or 8 months at a time. I've always been able to predict 2-3 years out, always. And then about 4 years ago, it was like, well, I can do the next year, okay, year and a half, and now it's like, I can't really feel what's going to happen a year out from now. So, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Daniel Brinkley was on my show, we were talking about this, and his explanation was, well, nobody knows. We're in a very fluid state, and what I was feeling like 6 months ago was some of the decisions the administration makes this time, right now, between April and July, are the critical pieces. That if the right decisions are made and they can get there, whatever they're trying to make happen, You know, I don't mean just the president, I mean our entire government. If they make the right decisions on our behalf, we will continue in a recovery and things will go well. And not like fantastic, like it's going to be slow growth. If they don't, then we're going to go the other way. And that's exactly how I feel about it. But it's pivotal for now and June. But I do believe, on the other question, it's hard to ignore that a lot of the predictions that certain people and, you know, like the Mayans and all that have talked about are coming to pass with all the, it started with the digital conversion when we went from digital or analog to digital, and information was instantaneous on the planet, and all of a sudden we see all these uprisings. People are wanting democracy, they're not wanting to be treated like crap anymore all over the planet, especially in the Middle East, which has always been the source of contention, like what's going to happen from the Middle East. Oh boy, really unstable and crazy, and oil prices are doing what they're doing, and yeah, it's a very real concern. And so people in my community, we just talk about, it's just so important to know about integrity, have personal authenticity, because those of us who get that and understand it will be able to handle the changes that are coming. Because we do need a different set of skills to navigate this world we're in now. And it's not going to go back to the way it was ever. And people are going to have to learn to do what they love. People are going to have to use different priorities to choose with, or you just can't continue to consume and use greed as your primary motivating force. Did that answer your question enough? I know it wasn't 35 minutes.
Kind of.
Kind of, wasn't enough?
You're not being able to see that far.
I can't.
A reflection, I think, of people's not being able to, find a
well, it's
focus on
very
what they
fluid.
want.
I mean, I'm an optimist, and I tend to think I'm gonna put my energy that we're gonna get through it. I'm just gonna go there because I got young kids. And granted, like my friend Danny and I were just talking about, he doesn't see any difference between life and death. Just you don't have a body anymore, so what? He can't wait to get there, whatever. It's all life. Here you have a body. When you don't have a body, you don't have a body. So what? So some people in my community, it's not a big deal. And they think it's just a time for us to start owning, reclaiming our spiritual identity. It's been taken away from us. And
thank you. I love what you're saying, and we just went in the back. So I did an event here Tuesday night, a couple folks here, one organizational healing. And the thing I love most is my boys were here in the back to surprise me.
nice.
So I don't know what you're saying. Except all the work I do with veterans or homeless and people in transition, I'm way underpaid if I look at the money part. And today I really shifted with how I want to do that with organizations. When I come in today, they moved my book from self-help to prosperity. And so when you said that, I know there's some alignment. I don't have a real question, but it fits with what you're saying. I don't know the answer, I know the path.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So you're just going with what the momentum is there. You're listening. You're listening to yourself, and you're listening to your process, and and it evolves. And that's what I say when I talk about the gestation period. When you're creating something, it's like a little baby, and you're nurturing it, and you don't know exactly how it's going to grow, and you have to let the unknown be okay. And you are.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I love it. Dan, did you want to say?
Well, yeah, about 2 months ago, they had a lady that represents the Four Winds Society, the shaman groups.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And they're all predicting in 2012 that it's already happened, it's already started, but people are going to be transforming into much more, using their neocortex more and transforming the society to what they want it to be, rather than letting someone else tell them what it has to be.
Well,
So it's
if we have a
transformational
financial
period.
collapse and there's wars all over the world and no one can afford to drive their cars and food prices are through the roof, I'm sure there'll be some changes.
Big transformation.
And Matt, I want to learn how to grow some things, by the way. Yes, sir.
My name is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I work for an airline company,
Oh,
and recently the executive took $800 million. And
boy.
the energy is coming through my body, so I just got to breathe a little bit. But I was in New York for 9/11, and when I got back, we had to, anyone that was in that business, we had to concessions, and go. And all we ever hear is, well, we're not making any money, we're not making any money. And it's just like, you know, the guy from PG&E here. And I was talking to employees today, and we moved into another terminal. They won't allow us to do this. They took away our comfort zones. They're trying to cram us all into one little room, you know,
Yeah.
like 300, you know, I mean, everything's like shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. But then you hear that they're taking this and they're taking that, and you want to go up and you want to knock on their doors and say, hey, we've been a family here for 25 years. You people come in for 2. You want to do all these changes, and then you leave. And then you're kind of like afraid to be black, you know, that they could blackball you. And that energy gets kind of like, it gets caught, you know, right here, because you just want to just shake the hell out of it. And go, and like I said, it's like, you know, we're ants.
Yeah.
And I know that what you're telling me, because I've done a lot of things, that I've got the power to do things in my personal life, but I work for I've got great benefits. And I'm there for the benefits.
Okay, well.
For the medical, the
then that's
dental.
okay, well, that's okay to own that, and that's all right. That's not a crime.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But you are caught up in a structure that you have no control over. And it's a structure that they're trying to hold on to the past the only way they know how. They want to keep it going the way it was the only way they know how. I mean, the airline industry is in a rock and a hard place, really. And you're in the hard place. So there's, I mean, it's short of you saying, you know, I mean, the benefits you say are great, but short of you wanting to have more autonomy over your life, and you sort of have to accept, and that's okay. We can say, as long as we're choosing from a place to say, I know I'm making this decision, and it's okay with me. It's only when we make those decisions and it's not okay with us. And when you know you have to eat a little humble pie every day that you don't deserve, but you know that's the price of these great benefits for me or my family or whatever it is, then as long as you're okay with that. It's when you're not okay with it and you have to keep going back in and eating that humble pie, then you know that it's time to take your cheese elsewhere, at least in my opinion.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now, I can do that. A lot of people I work with can't. But it's just the mentality of these people just keep crushing and taking
Well,
us.
see,
That never
then I would just take
It's like
issue
your
with
question
that
over
argument
here.
because your security is never found outside of you. And the belief that it is part of the problem. That we've all subscribed to that belief. And it's not really the truth, but we've bought into the idea, and so we've created circumstances and situations and systems that support that belief, and all these structures and that are all failing now. So, I mean, I don't worry about money. I don't care what happens. I know I'm going to be taken care of. I have not one doubt. I don't have not. Well, maybe there's a cell in my body somewhere, but really, I'm not worried about it because I know that my prosperity does not come from anything anybody can do for me. I know that's because I own it for me. And I will always be all right. How much money do I need for a day? I mean, that's the only thing I'm promised is today. The human experience wants to tell me I have to plan, plan, plan. And not that I don't plan, but I'm saying I know that that's not my security. So I'm working the perspective. You're going to sit with that for a minute. See if you can come back at me. Yes,
No, I
sir.
want to.
My name is
Julie, hi.
I've been jumping from job to job. I
Oh.
never really found anything that
Is that for Easter? You're hopping around?
Yeah, hop around.
That was bad.
So, you know, I suffered a lot of depression early on, but the antidepressants working now.
Good.
I feel good.
Good.
I found a hobby that I really love.
What's the hobby?
Jewelry making.
Nice.
and-
See me afterwards.
The thing is, I love doing it, but I can't really afford to do it because my money's so low, so I have to take a job that I don't like. So it's hard to do what I love.
That's fascinating.
To attract money
Okay.
and to be that.
Well, what I would say is I would start working, I would definitely have you start working with some affirmations right away to break up the story, to break up the narrative that's reinforcing that you can't have, because that's not true. You can. And maybe the other choices around it are more difficult and you can't do it right away. But I want to see you change up the dialogue so that,
So positive affirmation.
yeah, you want to, so programming, hypnosis, EMDR, EFT, whatever, lots of different techniques available to start breaking up that storyline and inputting other things. Because what happens when you change those frequencies and start changing up the storylines, it bring space into your awareness. You know, I always say it's just like music. You just can't cram a bunch of notes together and call it music. You got to put space in between the notes. All of a sudden there's inspiration. All of a sudden you think, oh, I never thought of the fact that I could blah, 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 go partner with someone or have, you know, stuff starts coming to you, and it's called, we call it synchronicity in the biz here. But you'll start to see that things can unfold and loosen up for you, but you have to be intentional about it. So I start with the thoughts and the language and some reprogramming.
I'm working with EFT right now.
Good, beautiful, love that stuff. Keep up with it, it's worth it. Pay attention to the feelings, keep working through all the stuff, and you're doing a great job. And you know, where you are is where you're supposed to be, you know? So you're just keep going in that direction. Keep the goal in sight. And you know what, once you get the, I always say, you know, once I learned all the answers to life questions, they changed the questions, that's how it is. We're always en route, you know? Yes, lovely.
Yes,
What's your name,
hi,
hon?
my name is
Lucia?
Lucia.
Lucia, okay.
Hi. Yeah, I'm trying to get promoted at my work.
Oh, and what makes you think you should get promoted?
I want to get a job. So what should I do?
What makes you think you should get promoted? Tell me. I'm your boss. Phyllis, I deserve a promotion because... Well, okay, well here's how you get a promotion, and I'll tell you if it's coming or not. You go into your boss and you tell him why you're so great for the company, all the accomplishments you've made and what you're going to do for them. You let them understand why it's in their best interest to promote you and to give you more money, by the way, because it's you create the scenario so they can see why they should do it. And when I meant it when I said, because you're like, I want a promotion. You know? I'm like, you got to go in there and sell it. You know, you got to, here I am, give me the promotion. You know, I'm not getting you're going to do that.
Well, how do you do that?
Okay, tough. Not tough. You strut your stuff. You let them see why. You know, you don't hold it back and, I like a promotion, please. You know, you want to exert your authority so they can see that you have authority and you have power and substance. And because a lot of employers, if you don't really go in there and stick up for yourself, they're just going to work you to death as long as they can. Okay? So, for you, I would love to see you in your bathroom mirror, talking yourself up to yourself, getting some practice owning your authority. What's up with that? You're a powerful lady and very brilliant in so many ways. So why aren't you doing that? Is it a cultural thing that you're not supposed to speak out? What am I missing here?
I don't want to be
Well, do you want to show your power? Why shouldn't you show your power?
Okay.
No, you're not getting rid of me that quick. Why shouldn't you show your power?
Yeah, just to stand up for myself.
I'm not saying, you don't have to stand up for anything, you're showing your power, why wouldn't you? That's your money space, that's the part you're wanting.
Okay, I'll go.
Well, you want to resonate in a power position. And if you resonate at that, and you're feeling that inside, you may not have to go and say anything other than, I've been here for X amount of years, I've contributed, I'd really like to learn some new things and expand my skill sets. And if you can say that, it might happen for you, but you got to feel it inside. They're not doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor. You got to feel that way. You're giving them you. How many hours a day?
4 hours a day. 20 hours a day.
All right, I won't poke on you too much. Just leave me alone. Yes, love. What's your name?
My name's Christine.
Hi, Christine.
I have a question about the emotions, as you mentioned that several times, and how it's linked to this process. I would dare to say, emotions are not facts. But to me, emotions are there to be busiest, not necessarily to be, relevant forever and ever, but I think to line mark information is very important. So I was wondering how you would talk about emotions in the work that
I think we have to pay attention to our emotions because they tell us a lot about our condition. They tell us a lot about what we believe. They tell us about how we feel about ourselves. I mean, they're keys to our internal world. I mean, and everything is created from inside. And so, when I use myself as the example on the anger, it's like, let me give you my service, have some. When you're giving that kind of emotion with your process, you can see how it might affect someone's frequency, because everything's frequency. You know, it's not glamorous, but we're a bunch of frequencies resonating to and away from each other. So they're great teachers, great teachers. Yeah, but yeah, we don't want to get stuck on any one, and we probably won't be, but especially the lower vibrations, so we want to find out what's in there. How do I release some of that so that I can have a more benevolent experience? Yes, sir.
And Hal,
Hi, Hal.
could you tell us more about how you tripled your income?
Okay, well, the facts of it was, at one point I had like 5 different radio shows across the country. You know, I had hundreds of thousands of listenership. I raised my rates one day, just a little bit. Just decided I was going to raise my rates. I hadn't raised them in a long time, and that helped. And then I just got real creative about delivering my service. For a while, all I did was readings, and then I did a lot of group reading events. I'm doing one here tomorrow. But then I thought, well, there's different ways to give the information. I started doing a lot of speaking. I do a lot of CDs. I do write a lot of books. I'm always trying to deliver it in different ways that people might want to receive it, because I know they need it, I know they want it, and my job is to figure out how do they need to hear it, what's going to make them get it. And so that's what I was thinking about, and I sort of took the attention off of how am I going to make money and can I do this, to how can I better serve. So the perspective really changed. But you know, I market it a lot. I do a lot of traveling. You know, I just created a lot of different things. You know, and I had someone call me just last week and saying, Phyllis, how can I, in a holistic business, how can I increase my business? And same thing, all she was doing was readings, and said, well, you really need to expand. You know, quit putting yourself in a little tiny box. Keep going bigger and bigger. And not because I want to be famous or anything like that. It's like, keep showing yourself more and giving your information in different formats. So it was a combination of just big time marketing, getting out there and being out there a lot, lots of networking, lots of products, and you know, supposedly doing a good job because I get a lot of referrals, and then raising my rates. And the perspective change, I'm telling you, just all those things. And I'm very disciplined in terms of my habits, and I am very self-motivated. Not everybody is. And you know, the first thing I do before I go turn on my tea water is see what's waiting for me on the computer. And you know, and I regulate my time really well and very time efficient. And I do practice what I preach. I have mentors. I don't try and go it alone. I have people who help me through my stuff. So I'm always aspiring to know more. I use affirmations. I use mental programming. And I like to partner with other people too. I collaborate on a lot of events, so I can hear what other people are doing, and just always trying to expand. Is that enough?
I think I was mostly interested in how you let go of some kind of negative emotion.
Well, I have to tell you, one of my mentor I work with, she sees all, okay? And I was going through one of my stories with her about this person who's driving me absolutely crazy and how angry I was about it. And then she just helped me, she kept gently pushing at me to show me how that wasn't serving me. And then I finally, after she kind of poked at me for weeks on end, it finally went, wow, you know, we're all connected. I'm kind of hurting myself by hanging on to this. You know, and then it eventually just sort of cracked through. It finally got through. I was finally ready to deal with it. And then it was very easy at that point. I'm like, well, this isn't serving me. It's not going to serve it's not going to help anything. You know, once you get here and here, it's not going to help. It's really easy to make that shift. Hang on just a second. Gina? Oh.
Yeah, I've got a quick question. I'm in prosperity, things go so well, and I feel good, and energy is high. But on a feeling level, I have a fear that something bad's right around the corner that's going to throw everything off. So can you talk about that?
Well, that's just part of the habit, and I would say there's probably more about self-worth and failure pictures in there that you haven't quite worked through. And so what I would do, I would just, when those feelings are coming up, I would source them when's the first time I felt this way? Where's the origin of that? Try and pull it out like a weed. Do the reprogramming. But you have to find out what's at the root of that. Why do I think that's going to happen? Because it's not, that's a thought, so you have to get the attached feeling to it. What's the feeling? And so and with you, there's a lot of self-worth stuff and overachievement stuff. And so you have to find the middle ground with that. And sometimes, besides the program, if you can just push through it, that will also dissipate the pain. Just keep going through, even if you're deer in the headlights. If you can get through it once, then you've created a new pattern. Yeah. Okay. Thinker?
Oh, I was gonna say, on this question, I was like,
what's your name,
what was it?
Susie?
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 Yeah. What was the gestation period or something that we were thinking about this? Like, was there a time period you gave yourself to figure this out?
To figure what out?
To get your goal?
I didn't know I had a goal. When this woman that I work with, she actually helped edit my book, and we were just in a process. And part of the process is her helping me see my own stuff. And you know, we've been working together for a number of years now, and we usually just chat. I mean, we don't intend to get into it, but we both like to go real deep, and that's her deal. And she just points it out to me. And then I'd be on the phone, and then she'd say, oh, well, let's look at this, you know. And it does take some time to release. And it took me a while. Believe it or not, I have an ego. I have one. You know, I had to get past my own stuff of what was involved with that. Thinking I was relinquishing my pride or my power by somehow not being angry anymore. It feels so much better. And I know when people say to me, Phyllis, what you're saying to do is so hard. And I'm like, well, it's much harder to live with all that stuff than not. It's worthwhile work.
You don't have to answer this question if you don't like to. But
wow.
Because it could be off the path. But
okay.
I see a lot of crosses, and recently I was listening to a radio show, and when it was a Catholic religion station, and it was going on about the New Age movement and how devious and blah 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 it is. And I've done a lot of visualization, and I went to Sylvia Brown's church, and I'm listening to that, and I'm wondering why the Catholic religion, I don't know about the Protestant or whatever, is so against the New Age religion when Jesus Christ himself was a healer from his hands, and I get confused with...
I studied to be a priest, I can tell you that.
We'll sit in the back.
They're losing power. They're losing power, and as they lose power, they want to hold on to it more. So they're going to create fear and guilt, and that's how it works.
I surmise that. Okay.
Well, it's a control game. So thank you very much.
Don't listen to that station.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious.
What's your name?
My name is Robert.
Root.
You can call me Robert.
Ruckus? I like to challenge myself.
I'm just curious to know how you do a reading.
You
do
mean
you connect with a spirit guide, or what is that process?
The process for me is, well, like about 10 minutes before I call someone, I sit down and I say their name. That's why I have you say your name. It helps me receive your impressions. And then I do kind of what Sylvia does a little bit, is I look at your life themes. I look at your core issues, because that's what's interesting to me. What you're here to work on the planet.
Is it an aura or?
Well, not anymore. It's very automatic for me. I don't have to go through a process anymore. The information, all I can say is the information kind of downloads. And all of a sudden I know what's going on with you, I know what your issues are, and I know why everything is going on in your life the way it is. My sense is you want to know about money, and so you came to East West Books tonight. Now,
yes.
When I do a group, I ask you to do a question, because you light up like a Christmas tree when you ask a question. And when the process I just described to you, it takes 5-6 minutes for me to sit there and receive people's impressions. Now, in a group reading event, I get in a somewhat trance-like state, and I'm just in the zone, and so it's much easier. It just flows much easier. But since you brought it up, just 1 second here. Okay, well you to me, I see you're someone you're working on your authority and your self-worth. I mean, it's like my power. How do I express my power? How do I feel like I am powerful? How do I feel like I'm intelligent? It's like you're always trying, there's a lot of prove it around that for me, for you. So I see that as one of your core themes. And so if you came to me and said, Phyllis, why did I just get demoted at work? Or how do I get a promotion? That's what you were talking about. And people sometimes sit next to each other in the room going through the same thing. I would say, well, I'd like to see you own it more and not question it so much and feel like you have to say attaboy to the master.
That helps.
So that's the mini version. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm just going to try and go to people who haven't asked yet. I'll talk fast.
I'm Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I just had a question. I've worked on some of those steps, but I
Yes.
don't know all of them.
Yes.
So a lot of it's been focused. So I've created 3 short-term jobs in a row. One was just in time to pay bills. The next one was a lot more money, but not very nice people. And the third one is wonderful people, but it's very short-term, and the money's good. What step am I missing to create a long-term job with wonderful people?
Well, I don't know that you're missing any. I don't see that it's missing it. I think that you're still in your gestation period, and it's clearly getting closer. I don't think you're missing. I think that we get identified with what the outcome needs to be, and we're locked on this. But I think you're in process, and I'm sure you'll have a full-time job no later than August.
Maybe before then.
Well, you never know. Your process seems to be working for you. You would like it to be different, like everyone wants it to be the way their mind tells them it would be better. I would just trust your process. It's working. I wouldn't be so harsh on yourself that you're not living up to standard or getting it right yet. I think you are getting it right. But the gestation period, and you know, employers are tough these days. I saw some ad last week where one of the qualifications was you have to be fun. And I thought, what day and age are we living in that they can now say that? But that's the nature of the employment market now. They can say whatever they want because they know it's dog eat dog.
It's getting better though.
It is, a little bit.
I do staffing for
Yeah.
tech companies are hiring
Well,
more.
see, you're in the best possible place.
Yeah.
You're doing staffing. I mean, come on. I think you're being a little hard on yourself when you're doing a good job. It's working. Just hang in there. Hang in there. And something will come along if it doesn't happen by August, before August. May, June, July, it's 3 months.
Yes, I have another short one or two before the long term.
Oh, no, make a liar out of me. Well, that's fine with me, if it's in your favor.
Thanks.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julia.
Hi.
I send out a lot of resumes, but very small return.
Yeah. Well, I'd really want you to work your power center on your energy, because your energy goes with your resume, and you've had your resume looked at by a professional, right?
Somewhat.
Okay. I'd make sure you have someone, like we have a staffing person over here, I would have someone look at your resume, make sure you're presenting yourself properly for what your skill sets are, and then what kind of networking are you doing? Because I'm not getting that people are getting your full thrust when they're getting that resume. I don't know if you're underselling yourself or not playing up your strengths enough, but it's like you feel diluted to me when you're sending out your information. It feels diluted, so people are only getting 50% of what your impact truly is. That's why I'm just feeling like the rewrite. And I'd like to see you network, because people could really feel your sincerity and your integrity, and I think those are your strong suits. So let's look at when you're... Now, are you with an agency or a headhunter of some sort?
Yeah, I have some connections. I can send you descriptions that I feel I have the qualifications, and I send you the resume, and then I'm just not getting anything back.
Yeah, and so what kind of networking are you doing besides that?
Not much.
Well, think about doing one more thing. Whether you go to a book group, a social group, something to expand your network so you can talk to more people. Because that's still one of the better ways to get a job. Because you can send out 500 resumes and maybe get nothing. So I think you really want to have that person-to-person connection. Go to job fairs. But I'd like to see like join a social network of some sort where you actually go to reading books or like this, sit around and mingle with folks and so they can find out who you are and get a feel for you, and they'll refer you out. You're a little ways off from making the connection, so I would just really encourage you to take those steps so you're not feeling your energy's getting diluted in the process.